G'day, Da Vinci 999 here. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for turning up and having a listen. This is some essential information for all parents. Now, if you're a young parent or young children parent, new parents, this is something that can save you a lot of trauma and crazy fear-based reactions to your children and keep your energy at a level that helps you manage an entire family's growth over the next 20 years. Now, if you're at the other end of the spectrum, like I am, and let's just say I had 4 kids, my partner and I were together for 10 years while they were all little, and then I sort of exploded in a ball of stress, inflamed tummy, 130 kilos, and everything was all about everyone else, and I lost myself in that, and then I lost being the captain of the ship for a while. And in doing that, I had to go on this crazy adventure to find myself. And in doing that, I discovered all these secrets of hydrogen. Now, what hydrogen as a breathing, as a gas, comes from water. Separate water, you're breathing in hydrogen oxygen. You're saturating water with hydrogen gas, you're drinking it, and it's maintaining and keeping your tummy at optimal levels, which helps with your brain fog. Now, if anyone's been a parent for 10 years or more, and anyone has more than one child, and we had 4, so we had 6 people and 6 realities and six balls of energy every single day, it is chaos. And in that chaos, there's so much beauty and love and pain and growth and experiences and all these crazy stuff, family healing, and a lot of soul realization. But sometimes the realization comes after you lose yourself, and I had that experience, and what it helped me do is understand where I let myself got to, and a lot of that was looking at expectations for everyone in the outside world and not really considering what I needed or who I was or how I felt or any of that stuff. Was all provide for the family, run around, create business, da 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 da, and I collapsed and my reality exploded. Now, on the regeneration of that, what I was blessed to find was hydrogen gas and hydrogen water. And what it was able to do is regenerate me in ways that didn't take a lot of time, and put me back in the driver's seat of my life. And it helped me reconnect with my kids and be able to maintain and sustain energy and application of life in joy, as opposed to pain, fear, and misery, and stress and expectations. So there was a whole flip of the script, and what I want to do in this little video is, as a parent, give you some experiences and help you understand how this sort of essential therapy in your house reduces 50% of the stress, hospital trips, everything else that happens as the parent in the life of the family. So welcome. I'm in Byron Bay, Australia, and I've been doing these videos just to help different parts of hydrogen be understood in different formats for different reasons. There's some very, very great applications in the concussion and neurological degeneration world, and there's a video on Concussion Safety in 3 days, and that's preventative and regenerative. So there's a lot of other things that I've done to my body since I was 130 kilos, and listen, in 6 months I lost 30 kilos. I regenerated my gut in 6 weeks, and for 2 years I was on the ground in the morning, in pain with inflammation and really a bad start to the day. So in 6 weeks, the water was able to clean my gut, and a lot of my clients and friends now who have that acid build up and they have that reflux, the hydrogen water actually calms that down and takes the inflammation out over a couple of weeks. So there's a lot of thing in the world where we're changing to natural understandings, wellness, as opposed to medicine. Now, medicine is for emergency crisis healing, and the Western medicine based on synthetic drugs isn't been so good for humanity, just saying. So at the end of the day, the hydrogen made from water, cannabis made from plants, mushrooms made from the mycelia of the planet, and with the plant world. These things can regenerate the brain, manage our oxidative stress, which is one of the first points of the top 10 killing diseases in the world. Uh, and relating that all back into a family is, how do I apply this, and how do we use it, and how do we then make it a daily dose, so to speak, uh, that then prevents, and but it provides all the energy we need, and it prevents all that fallout that can happen. And those journeys are important for growth, but they don't have to hit the bottom, and they don't have to have the crises that we have had seen in the past. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, and we're moving out of the age of Pisces, and that's about suffering, and this is about connection and community. And so we're getting new tools to live with. And this is the tool that turned my life around in within 6 months. And for the last 7 years of my life, every day I have been able to conquer my fears, conquer my energy requirements, conquer my joy. You don't really conquer joy, but I've definitely been rocking with my joy more than I ever have in that period of building that stress ball, which was my life, was the inside of my life. And then obviously that manifests in very strange ways in the outside. So the idea is building your core back up and building yourself back into yourself here, understanding who you are again if you've lost yourself, and understanding that you want to continue feeling who you are on the way through of life. You don't have to. We've seen the older generations, die and be put into hospital and get sick and all these pills, and every old person has 100 pills to take every day. Well, that's not living. So at the end of the day, are we extending life because we have fear of death? That's a whole nother spiritual video that I'll make later maybe. But right now, we want to see the daily application. If you have children every morning, you're on call every day. If they fall down, your reactive experience is generally a fear-based one, because especially your first child gets hammered on many levels, and really sculpts the parents, makes them into parents, turns us from individuals into a family unit, into a parent, and that parent is a bigger version of ourselves that can now consider things outside ourselves, not just me, 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 me. So while the older generation may look down on the younger generation about me, 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 the older generation actually, some of them are still there, but most of them were there at that age anyway, whether it's selfies or whatever. But the non-understanding of technology doesn't mean that we weren't the same when we were younger. We were very self-indulgent. We were very self. We didn't understand. And you become a parent, and suddenly you step out of that. And when you step out of that, you're stepping into, oh my God, this is the most beautiful, amazing being I've ever met, not just in my life, but I have never met. My children were like the coolest people I'd ever met. I'd met a million people, and these were the coolest. And so I just wanted to stay at home. I've built businesses from home, and I tried to spend time with them because they grow so fast and you miss it. And so many dads are out there working so hard. My parents did. My dad, I didn't really know who they were. They worked so hard. They provided a lot, but they worked so hard, and they sort of ignored us. So try not to do that with the next generation coming through. And they have so many gifts for us as well. One, they can teach us how to use the technology because they're born for it, and honestly, we all have our own fears around technology, around the evolution of humanity and technology's integration with social media and mobile phones and all that stuff. And I did a lot of that work with launching of the iPhone and in mobile apps, and we were on the forefront of that digital realm as it was happening, social media. But all of that digital world doesn't save your life. And that's the bit. If you don't have this essential understanding of health, and with the internet now, it has given everyone the knowledge, everyone the information, and everyone the opportunity, like me, to share what I've already learned um, without having to go to all these big, serious people that actually are run by big pharma, are owned by the oil companies, and control the narrative. So they're not going to let people like me in. In the 60s, they were shooting us. Right now, we have free reign because the world is exploding. The climate crisis is here. Hydrogen is a part of power, which makes water into the environment and power out of water. Automobiles, and now wellness, agriculture, and fish and food farming. Why? Because the essential part of hydrogen is it's a gas. It goes in, instantly metabolizes, turns toxic free radicals into water, and then regenerates the ATP energy in the mitochondria. that is the essential part of what everyone's trying to do. Whether you're trying to eat healthy, drink smoothies, run every day, you're trying to do what you're trying to do is create a maintained balance of toxic free radicals. And what happens as a parent and all the stresses as your kids grow, we forget more and more about ourselves and we lose ourselves into our family. And a lot of the time that is a sacrifice. The mothers and the fathers equally make sacrifices, whether they know that each other are doing the equal amount is determined on each individual relationship. However, everyone makes sacrifices as a parent. And in doing that, we get exhausted. And if you have had 2, 3, 4 kids over 10 years, you're exhausted, no doubt. And if you're not super healthy and eating healthy and all that stuff, then the toxic free radicals start to build up like compounding interest, and they build up over time, and we get sicker and older and tighter and less can we create the energy that we need every day just to maintain the family. Let less get time for ourselves and put some of that energy into ourselves, wherever our joy might be. So the journey of losing the family and losing ourselves, and now we're all, in our own world. We've been through many traumas together as a family. We've come through the other side. We've utilized hydrogen, cannabis, and other treatments instead of anxiety pills and pain pills. And we have everyone come through the other side. So as a parent, that's really what this video is going to share us with. I'm going to share with you. So in my crazy story, uh, I was able very quickly to get my body back to self. When I got my body back, I could get myself back. Once I got myself back, and the new self understood that I had to make time for me. I had to give time and energy to me. I had to actually make my decisions from me, okay, not from the best of the family. Because actually, if I get sick and fall out, then what happens? I can't add my bit to the family, and the family is unbalanced. So the maintenance of self is the most important part in the family, and then you have the maintenance of the relationship, and that's a whole nother video. But the maintenance of self, and then that self is a reflection to the children. So the children then see how you treat yourself, and that's how they start to treat themselves. And it's pretty simple stuff, but we all fuck that up many times until we figure it out. Then we can only do the best we can do. And like I said, there's many multi-layers to a soul and relationships and families and souls and contracts and all that stuff. And that's a little deep for this one. This one is just like our daily, how do we get through the energy requirements to be a parent and not be like our parents were at 40, 50 and 60. And now we can U-turn and maintain great energy until we're 60, 70, 80 because the knowledge is there. We just have to understand the self-love is the only requirement it takes. If you really love your kids, then you will really love yourself. Think about that. Okay, that was enough time to think. Hope you thought good thoughts. So I've been using a hydrogen machine, which is a couple of $1,000s, right? And you pour water in it. So the requirements of running this machine is putting water in it for the next few years. That machine, when taken to breathing, can saturate water for drinking, and you can even get them where they can saturate baths for bathing in. Now, what it's doing is reducing all the oxidative stress, recharging the energy of the ATP, and generating the energy we need every day, and keeping us in balance and energized. When you have energy, you don't fall into fear. If you don't fall into fear, then you're not going to recreate these experiences as the kids grow up. If they fall down and hurt themselves and you have a hydrogen machine at home, you can fix that injury. You can take away the trauma of that fall and that thing because the neurology and everything else that goes with that. So you can actually be your child's own doctor. And that's what I'm trying to say as a parent. Yes, it's very hard to get ourselves centrically focused on ourselves and make time and have time and realize we carve out the time, but there's so many obligations that we have to meet before we even get time. But really, we need to get up an hour early and put that time into us, and then our obligations will be met a lot easier. But turning that script around is an entire 90-day program in your own life, and adding this element will help you do that and continue to maintain that. And not only that, grow to become great people as a family, all your kids. Like I've watched my kids, I've saved my kids from not having to go to hospital and not being able to breathe at night. And through COVID, it works through any kind of neurological bang, concussions. If your kid has a concussion, who are you going to ask about it? They don't know. No doctors know. I've been trying to get the NFL, the AFL to listen. I've done 7 years of research in concussion and understand if those sports people aren't going to look after our kids while they're playing sport, then we actually, as parents, have a duty of care to our parents and ourselves to be able to do that. Now, to be empowered in doing that is very hard to unplug, but everyone saw the COVID malarkey that they created, and they literally tried to control everyone with a false narrative. Now, if you didn't see that, then you're just wide asleep. And now we're given that has catalyzed this wellness understanding of people saying, no, I'm going to take my health in my, like we've taken our finances and we've taken all our power back of all these things, but have we taken our health power back? Hydrogen gives us this. And because it's made of water, and because when it hits your system, it turns toxic free radicals, which make our sickness and oxidative stress and diseases, and it turns them into water in our cells and then charges our cell with energy, and then the cell can regenerate itself, the body can heal itself, and the mind is clear through it. Then all you need is that. Because if you have a clear mind, you can relax. You can sit back and enjoy your family. You can watch your kids stand up, fall down, play footy, ride their electric bike on wheelies down the road, skateboard flying through the air, moving. This is what kids do. This is the kids' world. I was lucky. I started skateboarding at 47 and I was taken into this world of children, and they were just like kung fu masters, you know. And they don't, and it hurts a lot more for me to land on the ground than them. But I had to learn how to roll, and I had to reawaken all this neurology to put me back on my body. And I was breathing hydrogen every day, and it was combing out the neurology. And the next day, I'd be able to do more and more stuff, but really easily. So it was unlocking everything, putting me back in my body. That was the thing as a dad. I was like, I used to sit on the sideline with my mobile phone and my pot belly and my little earpiece, and making phone calls while the kids were all skating, having fun. And a year later, I'm in the bowl with kids going up and down walls and going, wow, I feel, because the feeling of skateboarding is freedom. It's amazing. Um, but I was in their dimension, and I was looking out at all the dads with their pot bellies in the video, and I'm going, wow, I was over there and now I'm here. And the last 5 years of my life has been that, jetboarding, and there's some videos on that stuff. Because the experience of my joy was like, I want to go there. I want to go to a jet surfing. And we found these electric jet surfboards, and that was took us out of concrete, because concrete hurts when you hit it. But that's it. I blew my calf. I had bruising. I cracked my ribs. All these things happened because I was putting my body in these crazy experiences at 47, 48, 49, 50. But with hydrogen, I was able to regenerate my body within 3 days. Any bad thing took a week, and it could take 10 hours of breathing on the machine. But I blew my calf, or I couldn't walk. I was like, this is the worst blown calf I've ever had. And 7 days later, 10 hours a day on hydrogen, I was skateboarding without a glitch in that muscle area in my calf. And that was incredible, because in football there's all these kids sitting on the sideline with soft tissue injuries for weeks and weeks and weeks, and their bodies are young and should regenerate faster than that. But hydrogen gave me the ability to learn how to regenerate things. And we had chronic, and then I had a lot of people that have come into my life and needed help, and everything hasn't worked, and they're all out of money. So we put water in the machine, we turn it on, we breathe it, and within 2 weeks it U-turns their life. And at that point in their life, they suddenly have hope and they can go on. So what I'm trying to say there is, as a parent, you're going to get exhausted. But if you can have the hydrogen every day, it'll keep you on top of what you need to provide for everyone. If you can have your kids having it now, the thing about it is kids make a lot, they regenerate, but if you can give them extra little doses and you can put the water into their tummy, what they're going to never do is create oxidative stress. And that means they're never going to have these 10 top diseases that are in the world, killing a lot of the older people. So the future is, by integrating this in our homes, we have less need for hospitals, doctors outside. Think outside, what do you call it? People who think they know what they're talking about, sell us bad drugs, those guys. But really, that is a fear, because we don't know how to look after ourselves or our children on this level. And that's what I'm saying. It's been proven safe since 1930, since the Navy divers have been putting hydrogen into diving tanks and diving deep down into the ocean, and none of them ended up with cancer. So that's funny. Think about that. And so really for me, I'm trying to say that, there's so many fears that happen as a parent. There's so many reactions that you can have. There's so much when your child is in danger, or has an accident or has to recover. And sure, they may break their leg and need to sit down for, a few months. But there's a way that the body regenerates better, and there's a way where you come out and the leg's weaker because it hasn't done anything. So if you can be feeding hydrogen into that, that's going to be keeping the body regenerized and energy into those cells, so they're not deteriorating while the bones may be recovering. Now, if you've got anxiety, you've got ADHD kids, now who doesn't have one of them or isn't one of them, right? So I definitely am on every level. So what I found is all the kids who are 20 or something and they've been on Ritalin and and all that crazy stuff, we put them on hydrogen for half an hour and they'd look at me and say, "This is the calmest I've ever been in my life." And man, their eyes would go clear and they were suddenly like, okay. So obviously there's so much stuff going on with teenagers, and we've got anyway, 22, 17, 14, 11. You know what I mean? Like they're the levels that we're working with every day. Different emotions, different hormones, everything's going on. Different families, social groups, lessons. Crazy. What? That's just them. That's not even me. I have my own version of all that as well. And learning how to balance all of that is really, really hard. And it's really harder without the energy. And the thing is, as we get over 25, our body slows down. As we hit 40, our bodies really start to slow down. And then obviously 50, 60, 70, 80, and even if you get to 90, 0.01% are still dancing at 90. And they figured it out. So I want to be around till my grandkids are, you know, 30, 40. Huh. Hydrogen gives me the ability to regenerate my body every night while I sleep, go to sleep, breathe it. While I'm working on computers, I'm sitting there breathing it. While I'm doing my boxing training on this little head boxing thing, which is awesome, I'm on the hydrogen. So the whole thing, every time I'm still or in a position where I can have it, I'll be just putting it in now. I mean, but I've been doing it 7 years, and I am really clear whenever I stop for weeks at a time, I watch everything start to slide back to this other level of things. And I'm like, oh, this is actually really important. And of course, all the gut health and the yoga and the meditation and all that stuff you have to do, because you have to maintain the thing. You can't just breathe this and go, yeah, there's no miracle pill in life. There is transform your fucking life. And you're doing that as a parent, but you really, really struggle with time to do that. And then if you're together, you've got to have time for that relationship without the children in it. Or that won't end up anywhere that is fun. So there's all these amazing complex ways of living out life as a parent, on top of all the schools and everything else. But if you can understand that this one machine that puts water in fixes and prevents so much of the stress, so much of the drama, so much of the trauma, right? A lot of acne for kids. Like, it keeps them. I mean, my kids drink the water from these filters that taste amazing, and it's got hydrogen in it, and it's alkaline and filtered, and da da da. But they're like $600 for the whole family to have amazing gut health. And you can take that to any house with any amount of chlorine and or fluoride and chloramines and all the shit they put in water to actually makes us sick. This little filter invented in Byron Bay does all that for the family, and you don't need to spend $6 grand on a Kangen filter, which is amazing, but spend $6 grand on a hydrogen machine that you can breathe and do water and make a bath out of, because then you've got all those applications, and believe me, all of them together work incredibly. So you think about, as a mum, you've got all this moisturizing and all this self-care routines and things like that. We've got some misters, and you breathe it, and your water and gut health is good, and your skin's glowing, mama. And you've had your own trauma through uterus, through birth and stuff, and we even put the hydrogen gas into the uterus and help regenerate the uterus, and that happens really fast, and that's a big part of, childbirth. shatters you into pieces, and you have to put yourself back together again, like Humpty. Um, and then you've got a baby. And isn't that amazing? Like, just the dopamine hit from having a baby is so incredible, and watching them grow and allowing them to share their truths with you just blows my mind. Like, oh my God, the things that come out of their mouth are so prolific, and their perspective is so beautiful. And I watch their YouTube channels with them so that I understand. That's the only reason I can do this. I've been watching their channels going, all right, this is authentic, you know, TV for everyone. Beyond reality TV, this is like, people can be authentic. You can tell your truth, and you can be yourself, and you can. And there's people out there who hopefully will find it and go, that's interesting, and that might help my life, and that's what I've been receiving from YouTube. So hopefully I can put some of this out, and this can help a little. I can, hit me up in the comments, or an email. There's a book that'll be in the description that I wrote that's all about hydrogen and understanding it as a therapy and a medicine and whatever. And that'll give you a big foundational understanding. And in the back is actually some programs of how to use it, and doses, and daily, and family ones, and sports ones, and concussion ones, gut health ones. So I just wanted to put that out so that people understand how to use it, because they get it and they don't use it properly, and then, well, they don't have those protocols because there's not a lot of that understanding. But I kind of specialized in saturations on really high levels, and we experimented from everything from brain tumors to chronic fatigue, so every things that would just broke your heart, that people even had to experience, because knowing that this can prevent half of that, now the mission is, all right, how do we help this be understood? So I end up in wellness, but I'm like, wellness is so like as a thing. So I do extreme wellness tourism, when people come to us here in Hawaii, and we spend a week or two with them, and we regenerate their entire cellular body. We completely balance out that toxic free radical overload. We clean the gut out as much as we can in that period of time, but send you home with all the equipment so that you can continue that when you get home. And the next time you come back, it'll be for something awesome. Because what I've found is, it takes 90 days to change your life, and you stick to the protocols. And in 90 days, you're going to go through all this emotional stuff, and you're going to have these changes, but you've got to maintain that discipline, because that discipline gets you to the other side. And once you get there, this is what happened to me. I was 47, all that crazy stuff. When I got back 6 months later, I would have moments of forgetting that I had children, and look over and see my children, but they were born already, and all of that the trauma from that 10 years seemed to have disappeared, and there was just me and the kids now, you know. And one of those things that happened was me saying, I'm just going to tell them the truth about everything, and so I've had a lot of experiences with them where hydrogen has really helped them in moments that they didn't know. They had to trust me. They had to trust me over the doctor. And we're all born into that doctor system. We all give our power of healing away to that medical system and go, yeah, I don't do it. They do it. I just go take a pill. That doesn't work. That's not healing. We have to be engaged and interact with ourselves, you know. But what I'm trying to say is, as a preventative, as a generation of energy, hydrogen, it's simple, anywhere from 2 to 10 grand sets your home up, with the filters and the machine and the breathing machine and something to make the bath with, all that stuff. And then you've got it for everyone. And the kids, you know what kids are like. They don't want to do stuff that you tell them to do. They want to do stuff that YouTube tells them to do, or TikTok, if they're younger. So at the end of the day, I'm like, hey kids, the Force and Star Wars, they had a hydrogen bath. They put Han Solo in, and it, increased the force in the body. So I was like, this is Jedi juice. And then they turned to water, and they drank, and to them they're so sensitive, they started drinking water that was meant to taste like water. So they started drinking water instead of going to milk and juices and anything else that wasn't the water, because tap water tastes like shit, especially if you're a kid. It's all metally and stuff in your body, and they know they're not meant to do it, just intuitively. So this water filter, the Ultra Stream from Alkaway, is insane. And really, I got so snobby with water that I had to everyone have one, because when I went to their house, I wouldn't drink the water unless they had the filter, and eventually they all did. So that was awesome experience. Um, but as far as seeing other families, um, going through trauma, and we've all been through COVID together, and we've had floods here in 2022. We just had a big cyclone, an Alfred cyclone, where the community gets forced. That was really more Queensland that got hit, but here we have a lot of experiences like that where we have a housing crisis because of a flood on top of what was already there. We had COVID as well. So those experiences compounded all these traumas into society, and we have to find ways individually that work to bring us out of that. And like I was saying, hydrogen is the only thing that works with COVID. And in China, it's in hospitals, legislated that that's what you give people. And there's videos of people there with COVID who couldn't breathe, suddenly can breathe with breathing hydrogen. And so it takes us 3 days to clear COVID out of the system completely. And when you're finished, you're completely super strong. You feel amazing because all the energy's recharged instead of just hanging on. And then even the COVID fatigue, 3 days, that long COVID shit's gone. Lyme's disease, chronic fatigue, within a week, all that energy's gone. And what happens then is your energy returns and you remember who you are. And you're like, hey, I actually meant to feel like this. Hey, I can go out and do this. Hey, I can do these things again. Right? The hiatus is over. So let's hope that the younger parents out there understand what I'm saying, feel this, and understand that prevention is a better cure. You know, and by idle, I mean, just think about it. If you're putting water in a machine and breathing it, and every day that's what you're doing, for the next 3 years, you only cost you distilled, demineralized water, $5 for 5 liters at hardware store. When COVID was on, the funniest thing was I was going to the hardware store to get the water for the medicine that worked while everyone was jamming up the hospitals who couldn't fix it. So there's been some funny moments in my life over this side of the fence, looking back and going, wow, I wish people could. When people started dying around me that we knew, then I was like, hey, I got to share more of this information, da 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 da. So I started telling people about the COVID stuff, but you know, they're never going to let me run it in a hospital. They sliced up my mum, and over 3 years she died, and that was really part of my that happened while I was actually finding hydrogen and regenerating myself. We didn't have enough money to go to Perth and actually give it to her as well. So it took me ages to get to her, which was right at the end of her life. And she'd been in hospital for 3 years after the hospital messed something up really badly, and then just kept moving her through hospitals for the rest of her life. But I caught her at the end of her life, and I have my machine. I get on a train for a couple of hours, and I take it into the hospital, and I give it to her. And I'd walk in, and she'd say, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh my God, this is why people trip out. Like, I'm being forgotten by my mother." But really, beyond that, it was like she was really in a childlike state, which was way more fun on some level from all the traumas we'd experienced together in the past. So, but she wouldn't remember me. So I'd give her 3 hours of the hydrogen machine, and then I'd give her this CBDA, CBG, really low dosage cannabis oil that worked really well, and 3 hours later, me and her would sit down and have all these memories of childhood and her childhood and all this closure that I just wouldn't have got if I didn't fall into this rabbit hole of hydrogen and be so excited to be able to share it with people because, I, I for a being, as a being on the planet, I love positivity, joy, hope, love. I love working in wellness tourism because I love tourism. I've always worked in tourism, but the wellness tourism is like helping people transform their life and take it home and transform their life at home, not just come here and have amazing experiences, go back and go back into that grind. You create new transformative things for your life. So you're coming to learn and expand. And people on holidays are pretty chilled out and relaxed and really open to what I'm about. So I've always found myself in the Solomon Islands and even St Kilda in Melbourne as an artist and around the world in places where it's pretty chilled out and everyone's sort of on holidays to come here. So I'm in Byron Bay. I wish you would hit me up and come and have a hangout on hydrogen if you're in Australia or anywhere. Come from anywhere you want. We can get you some accommodation and set you up with machines, and it'll be like nothing you've ever experienced. Plus, we have jet boards and dolphins and other things that you can experience, hot air balloons floating through this beautiful tropical paradise that we are blessed to live in with our kids and our families that, more and more families come to me and I set them up with their units and everything and help them make a plan for each the kids and them and whatever they're dealing with and even the grandparents as well because a lot of our grandparents are really sick my kids' grandparents are all passed, so that was its own experience. But for the elder ones to come over, hang out with kids, have some hydrogen, it works really well with dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all those neurodegenerative diseases, which are the same as concussion in the long run. So the other thing about the concussion for kids, if your kids are on hydrogen all the time and they've actually got that extra dose, then what that's doing is putting a blocker on this tau protein, which is created in the brain every time they get a little knocks on their heads and every time they get a big concussion. And over time, that's part of the concussion thing. So if they're in sport and they can get knocked around a lot, skateboarding, I did. Um, Breathing some of this every day just helps clear all that up and prevent any of that damage so they can have that fall, but it doesn't have consequences in their brain. So as parents, this is one of the biggest things that is the scariest monster for our kids, being out in the world and enjoying themselves and pushing boundaries and growing and being amazing, because they're just amazing when you just let them go free. But them hitting their head and coming home, and then in the neurology, there's jagged parts that happen, and so there's information goes, and then and unless and we found with strokes and that hydrogen will undo the stroke in a day, and that's just neurologically unjamming that stuff up. So in that concussion, there's a little jam, a little niggle, could be little or it could be a lot of compounded ones, but you'll find your kid might even repeat a fall every 6 months or something, and that's the neurology again repeating itself. So the hydrogen combing it out regularly just clears that any of that trauma and stuff and keeps everything at optimal function. That way, if they have that fall, it's all gone, which is awesome because you know they're not looking in the right part to find the answer to that because they don't know about this. But we are meant to make 40 litres of hydrogen a day in our tummy from plant and fish fibre, right? So if that is the case, we are one of these generators, but our tummies are compromised lifestyles and sickness and and all the stuff, bad stuff that we consume as we're trying to be human and have a good experience. Haha. But cleaning the gut out, keeping the gut working, and feeding it stuff that makes hydrogen is much more beneficial to us. Look at a vegan, they're all shiny, their skin's all glowing. That's all hydrogen. That's maintaining the toxic free radical balance and re-energizing the ATP, and there's a lot of energy in that. Now, you don't have to be a vegan to get there. This helps you do that, maintain your tummy, and keep the brain at optimal function and the energy up in the whole body so that we can I'm 50, but I feel like I'm 30 when I'm running around doing stuff, and I'm like, cool, and I don't get tired at the end of the day, and I don't get exhausted, and I rest when I need to rest. But if I rest, I lay down on hydrogen, and it gives me 20 minutes rest is 2 hours sleep. If I sleep on the hydrogen for 3 hours a night, it's doing crazy stuff to my head and everything, and saturating the body. And really, it's about gas. So the gas goes in 2.5 hours, the gas comes out, or half of it does, and then every 2 hours, half of that comes out. It's called a 2 hour half life. Um, but the thing is, you wake up in the morning, have some, you're topping up night and day, an hour or two or three, depending on how awesome you want to feel, and how much time you actually sit down for. That's why sleeping is really good. Everyone has to do it, and you sleep much better. People come out with all your nervous system switched off and actually relax. You get to this state where you're just like, oh my god, how did I even bloody function and think I was even human in that state? And people are running around 10 years parenting. I'm telling you, you're exhausted. Have a recharge. Love yourself. Give this to yourself and for your family. And on the level, I don't want to say trust me to trust me, but fucking trust me. This shit works, and it costs water, and it maintains your children's health, and that maintains your own